Today. Welcome everybody to Adelaide by City mini reviews webinar series. Today we really highlight a cross-sector collaboration, the defense and health and medical sector coming together. My name is Yvette van Eenennaam. I'm the CEO of Adelaide by City, the Health and Medical Innovation District here in the heart of Adelaide. And I'm pleased to be the chair of today's webinar. But before I introduce the speaker of today, I would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people, the original custodians of the land we meet on today. I like to pay my respect to the elders, both past, present, and future. I also would like to welcome the local, national, international listeners today. These weekly short webinars we're organizing are really for researchers, for clinicians, for students, for entrepreneurs, for industry here in South Australia and across the globe, just to get a deeper insight of the key capabilities we have here in South Australia in the health and medical sector and related sectors, but also to spark some ideas for cross-disciplinary and cross-sector collaboration and partnerships. So feel free to go to our website because we record our webinars and they are all online on our website. Today, we also will record this session. So within a couple of days, you can see it live there. We have also a Q&A. If you look at the bottom of your page, you should see that option. Feel free to ask any question during the presentation or after. I will keep an eye on them. And we'll make sure I will ask those questions to the presenter today. So today, let's focus on today. Today is about, we have a defense leader here. Welcome. Thank you, Sumen Rai, to be here with us today. We really focus on the opportunities between the biotech and defense space. And there are many and they're interesting, but you will hear more about it in a second. Sumen Rai she's a director at the Defense Innovation Partnership, DIP, also called DIP. It's a collaborative initiative of the South Australian government, Defence Science and Technology Group, and also the three state universities. She's responsible for leading the national and international R&D engagements and collaborations. So again, highlighting that collaboration between researchers, industry and government all coming together and all to deliver those innovative solutions to the defense and also to the space sector. I was very interested to read Sumen's resume because it's quite diverse. I really appreciate the diversity of knowledge and thought you will bring to the defense space. She has previously worked as a teacher and lecturer in arts and design and technology. She was a science communicator, a coordinator of outreach and engagement initiatives, including several open government hackathons she led in the NASA Space Challenge. And she also holds a master's degree of sustainability, a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Education, and is currently working towards a Bachelor of Science in Ecology and Spatial Science. So welcome, Sumen. I hand over to you. And again, really appreciate your diversity of thought you bring to this space.
Thank you, Yvette. I'm hoping in one person I can embody all of the interdisciplinary work that we are trying to champion in the Defence Innovation Partnership. I'd really like to thank the Adelaide Biomed City for this opportunity to present to everyone today. I'm going to take you all through a bit of an overview of what the Defence Innovation Partnership is, the role that we play in the South Australian ecosystem, and then delve a little bit more deeply into some opportunities for collaboration, both at the national and at the local level. All right, here we go. So today we're talking about emerging opportunities for cross-sector collaboration. So the Defence Innovation Partnership was established officially in 2018 as a catalyst for trusted and recognised research and development in South Australia that delivers value to our defence stakeholders. And there are a range of defence stakeholders that we work with, which I will talk about as we go through this presentation. So in terms of how we're actually organised, the Defence Innovation Partnership is a collaboration ourselves. So we are funded by the South Australian government through Defence SA, and also by the Australian government through the Department of Defence, Defence Science and Technology Group. The 3 universities are also member parties of our organisation, and they provide both financial and in-kind contributions to the organisation as well. So we are also part of a national network of similar entities. So we've got the Defence Innovation Network in New South Wales, the Defence Science Institute in Victoria, the Defence Science Centre in Western Australia, and the Queensland Defence Science Alliance in Queensland. So between us, all of these organisations are primarily supported by their various state governments, but they also share something in common, which is that Defence Science and Technology Group involvement, both financial contributions as well as an in-kind contribution, which includes a full-time DSTG staff member who is embedded in each of our organisations. So that DSTG staff member is the associate director for each one of these organizations, and they come together on a regular basis as sort of the connective tissue between all of the various state-based organizations. And through that network of associate directors, we can share information about what's happening in our various states and also work better together to come up with cross-border collaborations for defense. We also have a really good relationship with industry. So you'll notice the member parties don't include any specific companies. We are open to working with anyone who would like to engage with us. You can see the people on the screen at the moment. There is a bit of diversity in terms of who's represented. So you'll have your traditional defense companies like General Atomics, Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, for example. But we also have had some good dealings with Oz Minerals, SA Power Networks, and a range of other what we call adjacent sector companies who are interested in some of the work that our researchers are doing, and also have sort of similar problems to what defense might have. So we can actually try and apply some of the research that is done for defense into these other sectors. So for the Defence Innovation Partnership, we have 3 main pillars: building community, building scale, and building the future. So in our first iteration, so our first few years of operations, after that, we did a poll of our stakeholders to give us some feedback on how we were going. And at that time, building community was probably the main reason or the bulk of activity that we were doing. So we do this apparently really well based on our stakeholder feedback. Early and systematic engagement with defense to really understand what their needs are. Building new collaborations between researchers, industry, and government through our Collaborative Research Fund, which I'll go through in a bit more detail a bit later on. Fostering new connections through our networking events and through our themed events like our Convergence series, which I'll also explain a bit about later on. And mentoring and supporting connections for building the research and development workforce in South Australia. And this is something I'm particularly passionate about, is showing early and mid-career innovators, whether that's researchers or people in industry, that there is a pathway for the work that they're interested in doing in the defense and space sectors. Building scale was something that we had feedback on from our stakeholders that they wanted to see more of. So as a result of that, we've actually scaled up our own ability to provide this by employing a case manager to help us be more proactive in how we manage the projects that we fund. And also the teams that don't get funded, we want to still continue working with them to see if we can find them alternative sources of funding, alternative partners, or help them to create project proposals that might enable them to be successful in other funds. We are also about to launch our new funding scheme that we're calling the Activator Fund. And unlike our Collaborative Research Fund, which is a smaller fund, which I'll talk in a bit more detail about, the Activator Fund will support larger scale, higher TRL initiatives and projects. The aim of this fund the Activator Fund, is to build capabilities now that will grow into sustainable and sort of critical capabilities for South Australia in the future. And that leads me to that final pillar, which is building the future. So we are undertaking some foresighting studies to understand what our preferred futures might look like and how we can start activities now that will help lead us there. And also building communities of interest from our foresighting activities and from our Convergence Series activities to help us build that center of gravity in those areas that we see are of strategic interest for South Australia. So I'm going to go through some live opportunities for collaboration at two levels. There are those opportunities that are being either funded or led by the Commonwealth Government, and there are those that are local that the Defence Innovation Partnership is driving. Regardless of which of those two sort of opportunities you might be interested in, the Defence Innovation Partnership can help you build the relationships and build the connections that you might need to help you further investigate and create proposals for those opportunities. So just before I do that, I need to mention that the Defence Science and Technology Enterprise is guided by a strategy that was released in 2020 called the More Together strategy. And this strategy is covering all of defence. So while it's often assumed that it's a defence science and technology group strategy, it actually also encompasses all of the services, for example. So this strategy talks about things like collaboration and partnering and how defence wants to do this better. But one of the new initiatives that was released in this strategy is called the Starshots program. So this is the science, technology and research missions, essentially, that defence wants to pursue. These are complicated, complex end states that defence wants to get to. That underneath them have a range of different research and development activities that need to happen in order for us to get there. So you'll see them all listed there. I won't go through them in great detail at this point. You can certainly look them up on the DSTG website and have a closer read of what each one of those entails. But one that might be of interest to this particular audience is the Operating in CBRN Environments Starshot. Which is the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear environments. So this is how we might detect or respond to an attack or an accident with, sort of chemical and biological agents, for example. So with these Starshots, there are different ways of engaging. There might be through workshops, there might be calls that come out with funding associated with them. But each one is engaging in a slightly different way at the moment. So while it can be a little bit confusing, the Defence Innovation Partnership, we can help you and guide any researchers who might be interested in engaging with the Starshots by giving you advice on who you might want to talk to. So each of these Starshots also have a lead researcher who's associated with them, and they're usually pretty happy to have a chat to people so that we can better understand what their priorities and goals are in the short term. Another really interesting part of what Defence Science and Technology Group does is the Next Generation Technologies Fund. Now, this is a sort of a longer time frame fund it's been around already for sort of 5 or 6 years, and it will continue on into the future. There are a number of priority areas that you can see in the left-hand column on your screen. Out of those, there are 2 that I've highlighted there, which will be of great interest to this community, which is the Enhanced Human Performance theme and the Medical Countermeasure Products theme. Again, like the Starshots, each one of these themes has a different way of engaging with the research community. In the middle column, or the sort of the next column in, you'll see a list of collaboration vehicles that DSTG uses to engage on those themes. So they might run a grand challenge on one of these themes, which will be a very large, complex problem where they will solicit proposals from researchers and from industry. It might be a university research network. For example, the Human Performance Research Network, which has been running for quite a while and has achieved a lot in terms of how we can better prepare, soldiers, submariners, whoever it might be, for operational environments. It might be through the Small Business Innovation Research for Defense vehicle, which is very much targeted at SMEs as the lead, small to medium enterprises as the lead, rather than university researchers. And all of this is underpinned by foresighting activities which happen on a regular basis around different topics. So again, this is something is worth keeping an eye out for, either on the DSTG website or by getting in touch with us at the Defence Innovation Partnership. Now, I've pulled out one particular live opportunity that is available at the moment, which aligns with the Human Performance Next Generation Technologies Fund theme. And this is the Oz-MURI program. Now, if you're not familiar with MURI, this is a US-based program, which is the Multidisciplinary University Research Initiative, or MURI. In order to help Australian universities collaborate with their US counterparts on issues of defense interest, DSTG funds Australian researchers to work with their counterparts. And this is the Oz-MURI program. So one that might be of interest is this particular topic, which is about building overall cognitive capability through attention control. And again, I'm not going to go through it in great detail right now because I'll run out of time, but please feel free to look it up on the DSTG website. You can see there's some deadlines associated with it coming up in about a May timeframe. If you already have, for example, an ongoing relationship with a US university, they will need to submit for the MURI program. You can submit for the Oz-MURI program, and it's a great way of stimulating some of that international collaborations for defense. Another initiative that will be of interest to this group, and it's still in an early stage of development, so there's a lot of time to kind of get involved and help shape what this looks like, is the Safeguarding Australia Through Biotechnology Response and Engagement, or SABRE initiative. From the Defence Innovation Partnership perspective, our Associate Director, Dr. Craig Rogers, who is unavailable, unfortunately, to be here today, is working really hard on assembling this particular initiative. So if you are interested, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with him so that you can understand in a bit more detail where they're up to and what their sort of next activities are. But as you can see there, it is another collaborative initiative, an alliance of a range of different entities and organizations that are interested in human performance, genomics, bioinformatics, and synthetic biology, or agriculture and national security. So it's quite a wide or a large tent there. And the idea of this alliance is to bring together these parties with a defense and national security lens over these activities, and identifying current capabilities, identifying gaps in capabilities where we can build new capabilities, and working with international organizations as well to help support this particular area of capability that is needed on a national basis. So this is something to keep an eye on. It is, as I said, still in the early stages of development, and there are a lot of opportunities to get involved in this particular initiative. And I would suggest that you reach out to us if you see anything on that screen that looks like it might be of interest, and I'll put you in touch with Craig. Now that's the national side of things. When we look locally at South Australia, the Defence Innovation Partnership can also help to facilitate some projects. So what we would like to do is to cast a wide net in terms of the types of projects that we support with our Collaborative Research Fund. So we don't put out any specific themes or topics that we're looking at, apart from what we say is we want it to be defense relevant. And the best way judge whether something is defense relevant is to have a look at the strategy documents that defense produces as a first step. And secondly, you can come and talk to us and we can actually reach out to our contacts in defense, whether that's DSTG or the services, to put them in touch with you so you can actually have a conversation with them about what your project might be. Our Collaborative Research Fund, or CRF, provides a funding contribution of up to $150,000 for each defense relevant project. It has some minimum requirements for collaboration, and to be competitive, it's generally a minimum of 2 South Australian universities working with an industry partner and a defense partner. Now, we've had 5 rounds of the CRF and we've funded 25 projects over the last 4 years. And as you can see, it's not just university researchers that can lead these projects. We can also accept projects that are led by SMEs and startup companies. And it's not just the funding. We also like to engage because we want to build that community and keep that a lasting sort of relationship. So we have pre-application consultation meetings with potential applicants. After the round is finished and we've made our decisions, we also have feedback meetings with unsuccessful applicants, and we have ongoing contact with both the successful and the unsuccessful applicants after every round. And this has been very positively received by all the teams that we talk to. The feedback meetings for unsuccessful applicants, for example, can lead to other opportunities where we might be able to make introductions or steer you in a particular direction, to find alternative sources of funding. Or it might be that we can introduce you to someone that helps you beef up your application for the next round, which is another really good outcome. And we've had a good sort of rate of return applications that have been successful in subsequent rounds. So the most important thing for us is to ensure that you as researchers or industry are having that ongoing contact with defense. So if it's not our funding, that you are receiving funding, or that you are building partnerships with defense in other ways. I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but you can see the Collaborative Research Fund Round 5, which was the most recent round we had last year. We had a range of different sort of themes and sectors, as you can see there. We had a total of 25 applications that we assessed, and we were able to fund 5 projects at the end of that process. We've had feedback meetings with all of the unsuccessful applications or applicants, and we are continuing to follow up with regular update meetings with those projects that have been successful. But as you can see, there's a wide range of different themes that we will take into consideration, and as a starting point, you can certainly come and talk to us, and we're seeing more and more of this as researchers just coming to us and saying, I'm doing work in this area, I think it might be interesting for defense, but I haven't spoken to anyone, and we can take it from there to provide advice and to make those introductions for you. You can see there the successful applications, everything from better use of virtual reality to wargaming, to building enhanced sort of hydrophones for underwater surveillance. This one is a particularly interesting project because that fiber optic hydrophone that's being developed and the machine learning that's being developed to kind of better use that data from the hydrophone involves a industry partner called Arkwright Technologies. And the fiber optic sort of sensor that was developed, that is being used for this project, was first developed for use in the human gastrointestinal system. So it's a pressure sensor that is flexible enough that it can actually be used to image, the human gut with a lot of quite high spatial resolution. So using that kind of pressure sensor, it's low cost, it's low weight, it can span quite long distances for sensing acoustic waves under the water is a really great application of this technology that was first developed for a health and medical application. And then you can see there's a couple of other sort of, projects that we're funding around looking at human cognitive performance and also how AI can help us as human beings to reason better when we're faced with a deluge of information. I'm going to play this, if it works, this short video, which is one of our projects that we funded in round one.
What's the best way of effectively presenting information to a human? Defence is always looking for cutting-edge solutions to really hard problems, and augmented reality has been of significant interest in trying to develop next-generation HMIs or human-machine interfaces that operators and warriors can use in different scenarios. And so a key part of that is understanding what this technology will be useful for and what populations should be using this technology. So my area of research is called active vision, and we study how people make eye movements and hand movements to interact with the environment. And we've also been interested in understanding how they deploy attention when they're interacting with the environment. Fatigue has been studied a lot on its own, and stereo vision has been studied a lot on its own. And currently there isn't a lot of research that has actually brought those two things together. But Defence needs to understand how these things interact in operational settings. Part of what we did with DST and with our other stakeholders is that we actually worked through a scenario to help Defence understand when this type of technology could be used and how having an adaptive HMI, which might change depending on that operator's state. So for example, if we know that you have compromised stereo or not, then the interface could be changed slightly.
So I'll just stop it there. You don't need to see the whole video at this point, but you can look it up on our YouTube channel. The interesting thing about this project is it's something we didn't realize, that up to 30% of the population is stereo vision, has compromised stereo vision. And so if you're using AR and VR devices for training or for operational settings, it can be really, really difficult to kind of, for some of the operators, which I think would also have some applications in the health and medical setting. So this is a project where the project has completed. And we're currently working with the team to help them identify other partners and other applications for the research itself. All right, so the results of that project were quite interesting and with implications for obviously operators out in the field for the military. And this group is continuing their research with DSTG, but what they managed to do with our 150K is to actually build a really great interdisciplinary team across the University of Adelaide, University of South Australia, DSTG, and a defence company called Rheinmetall, who was interested in the virtual reality applications. Now, very quickly, there are a few other ways for you to get involved with what we do, and that is through our in-person events that we will start holding again soon. We are going to be undertaking a foresighting study in the near future. If this is something that seems like it might be interesting to you, then please reach out. This is something we're doing so that we can use the findings to inform our activities and our funding decisions. And again, this is about building scale, for the future of South Australia. We'll be running more of our Convergence series sessions, which is really about looking at complex global national security and defense problems from a multidisciplinary perspective. We've already had some great outcomes from our 3 events in 2021, and we're going to follow up these 3 events in 2022. So again, if you see something in those 3 themes that seems to be of interest, please jump onto our website and have a look. We will be releasing the dates for those very soon. The first one on space security will be held in first or second week of June. So we're just confirming that now. If you want to come and meet with us, if it's not in our office, which is just located on High Marsh Square, you can see there a list of events that we will be attending. So everything from May through to October. Something you might want to note is that on June 22nd of this year, we will be opening our Collaborative Research Fund round 6. So if you do think this is something that might be of interest to you, then please come and speak to us. We'll be opening our formal consultation in the first week of May, but there's nothing to stop you coming and having a chat to us early. And the earlier you come to us, the better chance we'll have of actually providing advice and making any connections that we might need to back into defense. You can find us on social media at LinkedIn or on Twitter at dip_South Ost. Please visit our website. It has a lot of information. It is being updated currently, so there is some stuff that's out of date, but the case studies that we do of our funded projects, for example, and our collaborative research fund guidelines are published, so you can have a look at them in advance of the round opening. And please feel free to reach out to me personally. My email address is on the screen right now, and I'm always happy to kind of start a conversation before any sort of funding rounds open and so on. Now, I've already gone over time, so I'm going to hand back to you, Yvette.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I would like to ask everybody in this webinar to feel free to ask any questions through the Q&A. If I have a question for you to kick off with, and that's mostly around that SABR, that Safeguarding Australian True Biotechnology. That's of course of great interest to our health and medical sector. I believe the two things were mentioned, like human performances and genomics, that were mostly related to our sector. I already saw in your presentation that you talked about fatigue. I saw mentioning things around the neuroscience-based approach to human cognitive performance. What are the other areas within the human performance that is the key focuses on from the DIP or SABR in specific?
So with SABR, as I mentioned, it is still relatively early days, so I wouldn't want to preempt any of their decisions about which areas they want to focus on. But I can talk about it from a DIP perspective, because it's quite well aligned with previous funding schemes and research networks that DSTG has had, for example, the Human Performance Research Network, or HIPAANET. So we're seeing a lot of interest in particularly human decision-making under stress. And this encompasses a whole range of different elements. So everything from understanding sleep and circadian rhythms to actually, developing new sensors that can be worn, for example, that are unobtrusive, that will allow you to detect if someone is experiencing stress. And it might be physical stress, it might be emotional stress. So another one of our projects that we funded was about operators looking at distressing images, for example. And this was also of interest to the Australian Federal Police, who are working with people who are having to view, unfortunately, very distressing images on a regular basis. So the idea is about very unobtrusively kind of detecting the early signs of stress based on sort of different markers, and trying to figure out ways of mitigating those responses early in the piece, so that you don't end up with quite severe PTSD or stress in those operators. So that is of great interest, because the thing about observing distressing images, for example, we're starting to see more and more that defense's operations are becoming remote, and there's a lot more use of uncrewed vehicles, and there's an intent to use more uncrewed vehicles. When you separate the operator from the effect, essentially, that they're having, there has been research to show that has an additional kind of stress that comes with it when you're not actually on the ground, seeing the effect of what you're doing. So those kinds of things are really important, are going to become increasingly important in terms of how humans react and respond to those stresses. The other thing, as I mentioned, is that decision-making under stressful extreme environments, right? And this is also relevant for space applications. If we are going to be sending astronauts and so on back up into space, onto the moon or into Mars, they are all operating in very, very stressful environments where they're getting very little sleep. There might be a lot of noise, close quarters, remote, far away from their support structures. So how do people actually make decisions effectively in those circumstances. And this might be about using countermeasures, for example, food or caffeine or whatever it might be, you know, to kind of regulate someone's responses. It might also be how human beings can interact with machines or artificial intelligence, and those, you know, those sorts of things can actually augment our ability to make good decisions under stress, pressure, lack of sleep, whatever it might be.
Okay. I realize we're over time, so I really would like to ask all the listeners and the future listening of the recordings, if you're interested in that stress management, fatigue, neuroscience, cognitive performance, but also genomics, bioinformatics, and human biome nutrition. There are opportunities to partner with the defense space and collectively seek funding opportunities, state and federal, to connect to Sumen or to LA Biomed City. We will do some active work in the background to connect up people, some clinical areas that are of interest to be connected to the defense space. So we work together with DIP closely to collectively tap into some of that federal funding and bring it to South Australia. So feel free to reach out to any of us, and thank you for listening and watching today. And again, it will be recorded, so feel free to share it with other people in your network you think it's of interest of, and have a great evening. Thanks again, Sumen.
Thank you.